We got the visiting team getting ready to come on the field. But yeah, this is a great location. Really appreciate Fanboard having brought us out to this place for this fun. But I want to introduce the Fanboard team. Morgan and Josh are here to tell us about the augmented reality work they're doing here. Some really exciting stuff, and the fact that they're doing with the Braves, all the better. They're what's going to turn this game for the team from worst to first by themselves. So with that, it is my pleasure to turn it over to Fanboard.
Thank you so much. Honestly, thank you so much for coming out. We're honored to have you guys here. We're very excited about being in this space. To give you a little bit backgrounds on this space, I'll actually take you a step back to where we came from. The whole concept for Fanboard is actually born out of an Atlanta Braves hackathon in 2016. But then as we took this idea, we had a number of problems that basically a potential customer was saying, we need to get people moving around this great new venue. We need to increase sponsorship revenue. We need to, most importantly, get people engaging on mobile. So instead of participating in the rest of the event, we actually just started thinking about ways that we can do this. And we were thinking, we could probably do this through gamification. And so we took these ideas and these problems, we started to validate through new venues like Coolray Fields, where the Gwinnett Stripers, formerly Gwinnett Braves, played. Infinite Energy Center, Georgia Tech, all sorts of other places, and they were confirming that they were having the same problems as the Atlanta Braves. So we decided to create our first beta of a game. We called it Chopper Chase. So think Pokemon Go, but instead of fans capturing Pokemon, they're capturing Chopper the mascot. And with this beta, it allowed us to get into the Boomtown Accelerator program, which is in Boulder, Colorado. Which is actually now also located right where you're sitting. Just so happens that they've opened up their first cohort outside of Colorado, here in Atlanta, right here in the farm. And we are loving this. Obviously, it is a beautiful place. They have catered food, which is really awesome. They have a great rooftop view upstairs. But for us, it becomes a great place where we can test and validate. So if we ever want to add a new feature or the possibility of a new game, we can go downstairs and we can talk to all sorts of different people right there. So we're very excited about that. So what I like to do now is I'm going to take one moment to allow Josh to introduce himself, to let you know he actually has a purpose. It's not just standing here to look pretty, but he's actually a huge part of the team. And from there, I'm going to go into more in depth of what Fanboard is. And then I'd like to open up the discussion for making memorable AR experiences. And from there, we're going to bring up some talking points that I'd love to open it up and have, basically have this as a back and forth. So real quick, I'll have Josh introduce himself.
I was really comfortable just looking pretty, but okay. Hey, my name's Josh Fisher. I'm a PhD candidate at Georgia Tech right now. My main research and focus is on augmented reality design for, as Morgan said, sort of creating memorable experiences that are story and game driven. I see those things kind of like this. I hope you guys do too. My role in Fanboard is a technical lead and advisor. And so I step in to help the team sort of with the grand vision and the systems work for where we're going with augmented reality.
Thank you so much. So at this time, I'm just going to go through basically what we did at Boomtown, where at the end we did a demo day in front of about 1,000 people at the Boulder Theater. So this will just help to give you a better understanding of the business at a very holistic sense. So Fanboard is a platform that allows marketers to advertise to fans at live events using augmented reality. Now, the U.S. sports marketing industry is actually an $18 billion market, and marketers are spending more here every single year. But they're struggling to connect with the audience. They're having a tough time connecting, targeting, and advertising fans. And that's because there's really no solution that provides real-time information. And more importantly, there's no solution that allows marketers to track and engage fans inside the venue. So basically what I'm trying to say is marketers are spending a massive amount of money with no clear insight into their ROI. Now, as we're talking to people like Greg Mize from the Atlanta Braves and North Johnson from the Gwinnett Stripers and the CMO of the University of Colorado, they all say the same thing. We want more engagement. We want more engagement. And so we'll ask, well, how do you define engagement? And consistently it comes back as likes, posts, shares, comments. And this is very disheartening. For one thing is it's all reactive marketing. So they have to sit patiently, hoping that fans make the content first, hoping that it's good content, and then they can engage. This also means that a limited staff of 1 to 5 people has to make most of the content and to help get that story going. And the worst part that I feel is this truly engaging content? Is this engaging interactions? Really, to me, it's the most basic level of communication. When I think of engagement, I want to think of something that's captivating. I want to think of something that's memorable. And so we feel like there's a lot of room for improvement. And so with Fanboard's fun augmented reality platform, we take sponsor-branded AR games, and this allows us to track user experiences, engage fans, and truly engage fans and help make these memorable experiences. And with this valuable information that we're collecting, we now have a true insight into ROIs. So I'm going to take you through some of the demos that we've created. We're actually in the process of making our first game that's going to be tested next month, and then it's going to go live to the general public in June. But here's some of the things that we are working on. So fans will download the Teams app. It's very important. We make the apps for the teams. They'll have a suite of experiences. Again, this one is Chopper Chase. So again, like Pokemon Go, but instead of fans capturing Pokemon, they're capturing Chopper, the Stripers mascot. Now, again, we're trying to make memorable experiences. So these are things worth capturing and sharing. So we'll automatically capture this experience, and it'll go to the fans' game day story. From here, in order to be up for an incentive or reward, they must share this on social. Now, we're also working on games that are actually dependent on what's happening on the court or field itself. So depending on how many base runners will dictate how many gloves are floating above the bases. We also want to engage with fans after the event is over. So we can say you have an hour to get to a Domino's, interact with this character, capture the content, share this content. Or it can even be with products in the home. You say turn your pizza box into a home plate by using this character. Once again, capture that content, share that content. Now, all of this will also be gamified. That's why we're here, right? And so instead of just having a general leaderboard, we want to use the backbone of our technology, augmented reality, to help create custom trophy rooms. So as fans are increasing their stats, as they're gaining achievements, collecting inventory of signed balls and bats, we have a place that will be customized just for them. So that was a lot of the fan experience. But let's also go back into the business side for one moment. How many people here have seen the Home Depot tool race at a Braves game? And if you haven't seen the Home Depot tool race, have you seen another type of mascot race like the Tooth Trot? Something that exists in almost every baseball park across the country, it seems. But to be honest, no marketer has any idea who's really paying attention. So Fanboard and the team's fans to take a fun, goofy selfie as one of the tools. Now, this content will also go to the marketing team, so they'll have access to take their favorites to the big screen and also filter through to winners. So if you were the hammer and the hammer wins, then you'll be up to get the reward. You'll come back, get a free gourmet hot dog. So let's ask ourselves what really just happened there. Because again, we went from knowing absolutely nothing about who was paying attention to understanding how many people took a selfie, who took a selfie, how many Home Depot tools ended up on the big screen, how many Home Depot tools ended up on social, and then how many sales were derived from the incentives and rewards. So once again, we're creating memorable content and experiences we're sharing, and then we have a clear insight to ROI. So as fans are engaging with any of these experiences, any of these games, they're naturally creating native advertising. So a branded Home Depot tool is an excellent example of native advertising. And just with 5% engagement, we're talking about tens of thousands of people will see this on display boards, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who will see this on social. That's for every single sporting event. Now, the beautiful thing, too, is those 1 to 5 person marketing teams, they don't have to worry about making all this content themselves anymore. Now they're leveraging this army of fans for both content creation and distribution. Again, this is a really big opportunity. That was just the $18 billion opportunity is just within the U.S. alone. And the beautiful thing about AR right now is that there's no additional headset required. So I know that a lot of people here are very interested in some of the very advanced games, and we are definitely interested in hardware as it comes along, but right now we will be very focused on what's the easiest way for someone to access these games when they come to an event. Just real quick, so I don't want to give too much on the business model, but basically we sell experiences by reach. So if we sold a experience to Coca-Cola, every time someone scores a run, Coca-Cola bubbles fall from the sky, you have to pop them, and then the reach is what we're selling. And we could put this into every minor league ballpark, major league ballpark, and every NCAA ballpark in the country for the whole baseball season. Now, we are starting with minor league baseball. This is very important because this is actually the most highest attended sports league in the country. And that's because there's 160 teams instead of just 30. The other beautiful thing is a single team doesn't really gain the attention of a national advertiser, but collectively they become very attractive to national advertisers. And more importantly is because they're in the local footprint. So how many McDonald's exist in the Renos, Tulanes, and Tulsas of the country? Not only can it can be very expensive for these brands to get into these places, but we can do it the most efficient way. And then we're also engaging with with the fans with the most immersive technology to date. So again, we started our beta with the Gwinnett Stripers, and we're continuing to do our live program, like I said, this summer. And we've actually already started working with local sponsors, such as Brewster's, Chick-fil-A, Luigi's Pizza in the Beaufort area. And then our goal is to then start going into the Tier 2 and Tier 1 markets where we can now sell regional opportunities. We have an excellent team. I'm not going to go too much into this since they're not all here, but I'll definitely let Josh speak a lot more as we go into the conversation. But we have, again, a great staff that's really given us an awesome foundation. We have doing things like building a real-time database using Firebase and using bringing in Unity as the backbone of our stack. So with that being said, I do want to now go more into the discussion of making memorable experiences using AR. So one of the biggest things that we've seen, and one of the reasons why we've come into this is with all the AR experiences that we've seen thus far, it's more or less just throwing a technology because it seems like it might work or because of the sake that we could promote a new technology. So I have a quick question for the audience. Has anyone here seen a technology implemented just for the sake of promotion? A few. Okay, so let me give an example, maybe help make this a little bit clearer. I'm actually going to call out the Braves a little bit here, so I hope, we'll see if they're listening. Actually, no, something that should probably, if they don't already know, they should know this. So if anyone's been to the game, has anyone left in an Uber after going to a Braves game at SunTrust Park? Was it easy? It took a little while, right? So in my experience of doing this, and this is something that was promoted very heavily, we're partnering with Uber, we're partnering with Waze. Every time I've done it, so you have basically a 2-lane road going either direction, a long stretch of road. So you get paired up with your Uber driver, and now all of a sudden your Uber driver who's stuck in traffic is half a mile away. And now we have, instead of people just crossing a sidewalk, we have inebriated people weaving through traffic. There is even a median with a fence over the median. Now we have people jumping over this fence just to get to their Uber driver, and then once they do, they have to sit in traffic. So one of the most efficient places I've ever been to where when it comes to moving people is Las Vegas. You stumble out of a casino and all you do is they move everyone like a lemming into your, just follow the person in front of you. There'll be a cab ready for you and then you go. So sometimes just taking a step backwards, instead of just rushing into a technology can be a more efficient way of doing it.
If I may, just to give one other example. When was the last time someone's seen a movie? Anybody seen the new Isle of Dogs movie or Ready Player One recently? Been to the theater? When you left the theater, did you want to leave with a souvenir? Did you want to leave with something when you went to the movie? Everyone's like, no, why? Why would I want that? Great question. Regal Cinema just released an AR app where they're going to give you a book after you leave the movie so that when you get home, you can point your phone at that book and see 3D models from the movie you just watched. How many trees had to die for that AR experience? Non-interactive, just see a 3D model. We're looking to go way beyond that.
That's my favorite example. No, I don't even, some of the other ones too. It's basically being tricked into seeing an ad. And basically, we're kind of using augmented reality to get shown an advertisement. And just even then, there's times where we are using AR, we're using computer vision, and then we launch an AR experience. But to me, it becomes, I like to call it gimmicky because it's a one-time event. There's nothing that brings me back to this. I don't gain anything from it. And it's just, there's just a lacking, there's a lot of lacking joy there. And then to go into some of the other opportunities that we've looked at, or even our customers have, brought the idea of, well, what if we do an AR menu? Or what if we do, an AR signage with these new restaurants that are going into this remodel of a venue? And at first, well, listen, we got this, great idea. And then we'll go back to the drawing board. And that's what the whole purpose here is, are we really making memorable experiences? And so even with a customer asking us to do certain things, we'll sometimes turn around and say, you know what? No, we're not going to do that because that's not making a memorable experience. And that's something that you can pay for, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be that be short-lived and you'll pay for it and it's not going to be worth, your resources. So that's what we're always trying to do, is trying to add more joy, excitement, and of course, making, memorable content. Anything else you wanted to add there?
I think just in terms of one of the things with augmented reality, how many Pokemon Go players do we have?
Oh, sorry.
How many Pokemon Go players or previous Pokemon Go players do we have? Small handful. Don't be embarrassed. It's fine. We all played it for a few weeks. That was an AR experience that was really just using very simple and basic augmented reality, and the level of interaction that it provided was relatively disappointing. But it was built on the backbone of Ingress and the great work that company did in terms of locating and finding places where people congregate so that we can have these sort of AR moments. What Morgan's talking about is he's talking about sort of looking at those foundational networks and places that already exist. How are people already engaging in these spaces? And what are the ways that augmented reality can make that experience more enjoyable, joyful, and interactive? If we're just putting a 3D space, we're not doing any of those three things. And as game developers, I'm sure you all know that engagement, entertainment, and a story are what keep people to come back. And that's what we're really trying to do.
Perfect.
Oh, two mics.
Yeah.
Hey,
surprise. So now let's actually talk about the Gameday Experience a little bit. So with augmented reality, one thing that we can start doing is, instead of focusing on the Gameday experience starting in the venue, we can actually start on the way there. So using things like location, we can have, we can bring in notifications that can bring us context that's related to the venue itself. We can start playing these games, getting up-to-date alerts on the way there. So basically, we can also prime up our engagement. So if we're going to have a game that's going to be available, like the Home Depot Tool Race, like Chopper Chase, we can start interacting with the fans who have already bought tickets, who are already on the way there, or within a certain geofence of the venue. Now, here's another question to go back to: are we really creating better experiences? Something that I personally wanted to look towards was using more AR for tailgating purposes. And I think that there are some new AR games that are going to be coming out. I think we're going to be able to have a lot of fun with that. When you pull out a picnic table or you have a tailgate out, I think there should be a lot of fun that we could do with that. But we're also looking at, okay, what if we're comparing like cornhole, something that exists at a lot of concerts, a lot of tailgating events. And we were kind of thinking about it. We were like, no, it's just not the same. We might be there, and once again, we're dropping this technology, but there's nothing like having that beanbag in your hand, actually sinking into the cardboard, and you're sinking that shot. It's just, there's something about having that physical game present, and that's where it seemed like it might have been a good idea, but when we really ask ourselves these questions, I think we're really taking away from the tradition of that game.
So one of the things that, if we were to take that example, one of the ways in which AR could be useful is that I know many people play that game with a beer in one hand for balance, right? Because you don't want to fall over. It can be hard to track the score after too many of those. And so using augmented reality to track the score of the game adds something to that experience that just having an AR version of bags actually takes away from the experience. So we're finding those little ways that to add to the moment.
Or having that board itself as a flat plane where we can then queue up Chick-fil-A cows and or the score itself. We can have a lot of fun with that and add more engagement and still have it. Again, bringing in the sponsored aspect as well. But yeah, I think there's other things instead of just can we redo this. So one thing that we're also very interested in helping to augment the experience is really to influence the narrative. So one thing that we really love, there's a number of reasons why we love the live sporting event. One, it's, we are able to really, augment this experience that you're already here for. We can influence you. We can easily tell you about how you can get connected with this. You got a Braves game, so download the Braves app. And even if you're a casual fan, anyone here a casual fan, someone who may not be so interested in stats or highlights, I'm going to be honest, that's me 100%. I think the majority of the games I go to, I sit in my seat for about 2 innings, and the majority of the time, I don't know who wins at the end. That's because I found my way to another part of the venue, which in itself, is very engaging. So it's how can we engage someone who really isn't, because right now on the apps, we have stats and highlights, things that are for the diehard fan. Now, at any given game, we actually have the majority share casual fans. So how do we give them something that they might enjoy? And that's what we're trying to do. Now, the other thing is we can easily tell you about it. We have display boards everywhere. We have a Jumbotron right there, and we have a loudspeaker. It's very easy to tell people, hey, this is available to you. Now, the other thing that I was getting to is the narrative behind this. A lot of teams already have a narrative. The Pittsburgh Steelers, why are they called the Steelers? Well, it's not because of Terry Bradshaw. He was a Steeler. So you have to go back even farther. Oh, yeah, it's because of these guys who worked through the most hellish, working environments. And that's why you should be proud of being a Steeler, because that's where it started. And then came Terry Bradshaw. But, working with the narrative, that's something that we really want to work with, and being able to give someone a new experience. Or here in Atlanta, how we have, the home run king, Hank Aaron. But, he lived through like a very different era. So maybe we can build this into a new narrative and a storytelling aspect. Now, I know you want to jump into things. You have some narratives that you can live by. But I was going to ask the group real quick. Is anyone here a transplant from a different city? Perfect. Where are you from? New York. What are some of the narratives around or traditions around some of the teams in New York? Pinstripes. Actually, no, it's all right, but just the tradition itself and building around that narrative and the story around just the pinstripes and the creation that again the visual aspect that gives. Do you want to?
Yeah, so one of the key things that AR does is it makes the invisible visible. So each one of these places, each one of these stadiums, each one of these fields has a different story, history, and narrative behind it. And when an audience member or someone who's coming to watch the game comes to this place, they're already primed to enjoy and engage in an adventure in their day. Coming to a baseball game isn't the everyday. Going to a sports game isn't the same thing you deal with every day. And so if we can make that history visible to the user when they come here, we can integrate them into that history and make it theirs. And that's a really powerful moment for our users that we hope to unlock.
So the next part that I'm going to go into is these games that I'm very excited about, where we can actually interact with the sporting event itself. And I think this really helps to reinforce what I was just saying about the casual fan. Now, if we can gamify these games in completely different ways, not only can we help augment the downtime, make things more joyful when they're just, warming up in between 9 innings, so they do it 18 times. But we can actually influence the game itself. So we've actually partnered with a company called Sports Radar. They're a company that provides real-time stats. So when we have the information of any statistic coming in, we can actually then queue up an experience. So that's what I was talking about earlier. If we can have games that have gloves hovering over the bases, and that fans can interact with them depending on if a base runner is on. Or if someone scores, we can have this real-time information. This is going to be very important for us as we start moving into faster-paced sports. So we start talking about basketball and football. These are games where people may not be as wandering around as much. They are actually looking down at the field just to see the action. So this is one where we have the stats that we can start queuing things up. Just like you might see, the lines on the fields, that's, technically augmented reality. Now we can start queuing up games depending on what's happening on the field. This is also a great opportunity for the casual fan to learn something. So we actually have gamification for the sake of education. And so I've talked to a number of people. This may or may not be the same experience that you've had, but a lot of people have come to a game, don't know much about it, but they have their friends who played all 4 years through high school. He knows the whole team. And so he starts explaining why a pitcher is doing a certain thing or why one guy has decided to move over to a different position in the field. And he's able to explain that. And so we're very excited about looking into these games that we can help train people and help teach them something about the sport. And maybe the more we learn about this sport, the more engaged we'll be with the actual sporting event itself.
So I worked for a company called Interactive Network that back in '93, they were doing predictive games. No cell phones back then. They actually sold a brick or actually gave you one at the ballpark. And they had at least success in about 5 cities doing basically predictive sports. I think even QB1 still exists today in some form or another. But their baseball one was awfully engaging. And have you guys looked into anything along those lines?
So we have looked into predictive games, and I think there is going to be a lot of fun with having that. Even going to, basketball, where you can predict, is this guy going to make the free throw? Having something where we can, we know someone's lined up, and we can dictate, is he going to do it, yes or no? And then we can keep those stats. So that is actually something that we are very interested in. We haven't gone there just yet. We've seen some other people in the space, excuse me. But that is something that I think we can very much start looking at influencing, these games that are dependent on what's happening on the field or on the court. I'll have to reconnect with you on that too, just kind of get a little more information on some of the people who are doing it. Anything you wanted to add about? Now, the other thing, now going into different types of sports. So we were just talking about baseball and how it is a slow-moving sport, or how football. Not only are we talking about different types of sport, we're also talking about different types of fans. So just with the comparison of the Gwinnett Stripers versus the Atlanta Braves, it's a very different venue. So we have to create games for different demographics. And that's one reason. Another reason why we're going after minor league baseball. I think I gave, a good handful in the little pitch deck. But having something that's oriented around Pokemon Go, these are, this is the key demographic. These are the kids who are still playing it. And these are the ones who get fidgety. They get bored after 3 innings or less. And right now, the only remedies the parents have are to walk around the venue with their children. So now we've created a game that's very intuitive to that. And then also we've learned that women have 80% of the purchasing power when it comes to sports merchandise. So now we can make incentives or rewards for something that's helping the mom not only appease the boredom of a child, but also helping them to receive the benefits. To get to the point, though, is we have a very different crowd around SunTrust Park. So we'll have more young professionals. We'll have college students who are off during summer break. Now, there's also just the size of the venue. We'll also have families. You can look down there right now, and you'll see some families playing in that lawn. But what we've learned from parents at a minor league park is they said they will actually feel comfortable letting their kids wander around a park with a sibling or a friend as early as age 10. But there's no way in hell that's going to happen at SunTrust Park. It's just too big. It's too distracting. There's a lot going on. So yeah, it's just we're learning what we can and can't do, and so making sure that we are always building towards the demographic.
You mind if I ask a quick question about that?
Yes, please, go ahead.
One thing we see at esports events is that it is very common for the folks who are watching the game to also be playing the game. You go to a Clash Royale tournament, and at least 50% of the people in the stadium are playing the game while they're watching it. And I also see this at racing events and on Motor Speedway and elsewhere. You'll see people playing racing games on their phone while the race is going on. So how much is this not only becoming a benefit, but an expectation of the fan that they are not just a passive participant, that they are somehow active at the same time the bigger spectacle is taking place?
So that actually reminds me of a point that I was talking with someone before we sat down, and we were talking about actually just more of the logistics of doing this and, the Wi-Fi power that it takes. And actually, another reason why we're doing live events is how quick these venues know they have to bolster up their infrastructure. And so actually, the Braves were boasting how a fan was able to come in here and stream a full-length feature film on Netflix. And they're saying, yeah, if you're going to come in here one way or another, you're going to be happy. As long as you're inside the gates, you're going to be happy. And so we're saying, well, we can do better than that. Let's get them back engaged. Let's use your bandwidth for a better purpose. So I think that's actually to the point of what was just mentioned there is the expectation. The expectation is you will be able to find yourself in an immersed world, whether that's a feature film, whether that's an AR game, or you're engaged with esports at another level. But yeah, the expectation is that we will be able to do that. So our goal is let's take the sponsors who are spending millions of dollars to be present in this stadium to get in front of that, because their dollars are worthless if they're not paying attention. And also let's heighten this. A kid can watch a feature film anywhere, but if he's going to be here, let's get him engaged with what's happening around him, and let's use this AR to help augment this experience.
Yeah, and just to kind of jump onto the back of that, that expectation really sets up the goal of what AR is, right? I mean, we don't want what the end goal is not necessarily someone to say, I went to SunTrust Park and I played an AR game and I chased Chopper. What we want the kid to say, what we want that user to say is, I went to SunTrust Park and I caught Chopper while I chased him. That AR is dropped. That it's not happening somewhere else, that it's not happening on the phone, that it's happening now to them in the experience that they're in. And that expectation that we're talking about, that people are already engaging in their media this way while something live is happening, points us in that direction to try to accomplish that.
Very well said. So moving on to some of the other things that we want to talk about. And actually, this is where I'm going to start pulling on you guys a little bit more, because this is actually maybe where we could use some help. So we mentioned in the pitch that we had portals, and this is a technology that we had. There's a number of ways that we can utilize it. One of them being that we could actually take 360 cameras and put them in a dugout or a bullpen on the fields, and people can use these. They can use these portals to go into a new part of the venue that they don't have access to. Another thing that we've looked at, as mentioned, was having these custom portals for a custom trophy case. And so obviously here we're having things that people, inventory that people can earn, different achievements. Really what we're trying to do is have games that have real world incentives, such as concession items, merchandise, discount on tickets, or anything that might be dealing with the sponsors, such as, pizza or something at Dick's Sporting Goods. Now, we are familiar, so we're trying to gauge, what are some of the things that have worked and have not worked when it comes to having the digitized achievements? Or let me ask you this way, what is the worst digitized achievement you've ever seen? Like something that just did not make sense and you saw it in a game and it ruined the experience?
Yeah, so I think we see them all the times in mobile games, the pay-for-play games, where you have to buy a certain amount of rubies, and then you get the rubies, and then you get some achievement later on, and maybe that achievement can be turned into rubies later on, that then maybe you can buy more money, that then gets you another inventory item later on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Are there any sort of systems like that you just were like, well, that was meaningless? And we'd like to hear what they are, because we want to avoid them.
I see a few people nodding heads. Anyone want to share?
Who wants to? Is this because it's like ratting out another game developer? Is there a secret code?
Oh, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm DeGrazier Daniels, and I am a virtual reality, augmented reality specialist. You were going to ask a different question about anything good. I can't speak to anything bad, but I can speak to things that I have seen work. So I develop experiences in VR and AR, and I do those for universities, museums, and various organizations around the city of Atlanta. And I've had a lot of success doing these things. And I find people, you mentioned it earlier, I find people are connecting to these stories and to these experiences. I had a packed museum, people waiting around the line to come in and experience some of the things that I've created.
I was there.
You were there. We got to talk then. So I'm building another experience now for the city of Atlanta, which is integrating 360 and dance and doing some unique things and innovative things. But education is a big part of it. How can we include more people? One thing that the city of Atlanta always writes in its contract, like how can you bring individuals with various disabilities in? And it just makes us think differently when I design these things. So experiences, telling amazing stories, those are all have been positive and worked really well for me.
Before you pass on the mic, quick question. Is talking about the story and the narrative, did you feel like you were telling a new narrative, or did you feel like you're building upon the existing narrative? Does that make sense?
I just used old narratives, starting out simple. I took something that I'm familiar with and things that I can speak to, dance, and just very individual experiences. I'm able to just start there. And just those simple things, people connect with those because not everybody has the same experience, and we all want to know, or people want to learn our experiences, other folks' days and lives, right?
Awesome, perfect. Oh yeah, going to the point of utilizing the existing narratives that are there.
Real quick, if you guys don't mind, ask your questions over here, or if the internet can't hear somebody.
And I'll give one more opportunity to that same question of
On the positive note, perhaps.
things that any achievements that have worked, or things that, incentives, even if they're not the physical real world examples, but things that have. All right, come on up.
I don't know if this will help.
There's no wrong answer.
Since the word gamification even started, I've hated all things gamification. I play a free cell game that, every 1,000 points or whatever tells me I hit another level. Who cares? And they give them a name. King 1, King 2, and then after you go through about 50 of them, they repeat and say, oh, you're back at, number 1-2. It's just seems pointless to me, and always has. However, your core audience might actually enjoy them no matter how stupid people find them. So, but that was trying to do the politics.
We appreciate that.
Joe and I
Avoiding the
have these
grind.
arguments. I think that achievements are great when there's something the players care about, and it denotes an experience which they've been striving toward and put actual interest in and effort and thought into, and other people they know are doing the same. So I think achievements have a great place, and in games, they've obviously been very valuable to driving continued player engagement. And where we hate the idea of gamification is when they're just putting game labels on things without actually creating any greater involvement. When they create that greater involvement and engagement and caring and passion on the part of the user, that's when we like it, or when I like it. Joe doesn't like it at all.
Well, if I might, like, just to kind of jump on there, maybe a good question to ask is, what sort of digital achievements would you want to have that would, and for real life things here in this stadium? Yeah.
So the thing you guys are doing that I like the most is I'm cheap. And so you're passing the financial burden off of the player and onto the advertiser. So then they're a little bit more interested in doing what you would call it boring or gamification or whatever. I would be much more interested to do that because I'm not paying for it. They could talk about you got to buy a gym, and then it turns into some other money in some kind of circle. Well, somebody else is paying for that now. So I get the free pizza or whatever, and that sounds good to me.
Free pizza? For every American.
And if I'm a super fan, I come to enough games and I've collected enough minor league players, I turn them into a Chipper Jones. That's the achievement I care about.
Oh, okay, good to know. All right, so no, we really appreciate that. It's, obviously, why we're here is to learn. And I'll get into more of that. I really actually want to go into more of the future, and this is where I'll let Josh speak a little bit more. But there's some really cool things that are going to be coming out in the next few years, including 5G networks, the development of an AR cloud, new sensors that will be able to be cheaply implemented in these high volume places like SunTrust Park. So we'll be able to do some really cool things. Be able to move. From wherever you're sitting, be able to see a stream behind, like a comet behind a ball, like a ball or puck tracer. Or what's really cool is the perspective. This is where Josh would really kind of go into more detail. Is instead of just having a competitive game where each person can see a view through their phone and you can play one of these games against each other, we're actually talking about we're talking about just from perspective of where you are. I could be wearing a jersey right now. An Atlanta Braves jersey, and it's not just anyone could pull up, their phone and they can see me wearing this jersey. Or if I'm wearing the Charlotte Knights and I'm actually playing these games and I'm collecting a suit of armor, and you can see what armor I'm wearing. But you don't actually, it's instead of just competing in it, you could be anyone. You can see what I have, and that more of the perspective will go into where you're sitting in the stadium. But basically, the competitive play and the perspective, it all changes entirely. And actually with that, I think maybe I'll pass it on to you.
So one of the things that, how many AR developers do we have here, or people who play in Unity? And okay, yeah, Unity AR interface, you guys playing with that? All right, good. So, technology's come in leaps and bounds in the last year, 2 years. 4 years ago when I was doing augmented reality, nobody knew what I was talking about. I'd be like, look, it's a picture in front of a picture, like it happens. So we're finally getting this step now, though, where we can begin crafting experiences that take advantage of not just the individual's immediate physical reality, but the cultural reality and the social cultural reality that surrounds them. So you can think of an opportunity where a kid who knows he's going to a game in the morning wakes up, he gets that notification on his phone saying, get ready for the baseball game today. And then he is in the car on the way there, and when he looks through, as the car is traveling to the stadium, he looks on the sidewalk and there's a timeline of the history of that team that's happening, or of the games that they won that season that's showing up on the sidewalk. It's a metaphor for their life, for the team's history and that person's history as they go into that stadium. When they arrive there, they're immediately invited to play games with other fans at that location. The Super Bowl recently did something like this where they put a whole bunch of baskets, augmented reality baskets in the middle of a stadium, and people threw footballs into there. And so sides of the stadium were competing against one another, all right? And you saw the scores updated in real time. Has anyone ever been to a football game or a baseball game where somehow the most coordinated group of fans has gotten together and they're flipping signs around to make messages? Well, how cool would that be if everybody could participate in that, even if you didn't bring your sign? It's cool, no worries. When the participants, when they leave the game, they're using the Fanboard app, of course, and so they pick up their prizes. And then on the way home, perhaps they stop off and they get their milkshake at Wendy's, their Frosty at Wendy's. And then when they get back to their house and they're all sitting around and they're talking about the game that they just saw, the replay, they point their phone at the table and a replay of that game begins happening. And they can pause it and they can see where the ball is. They can talk about different plays. They can fast forward. Then all of a sudden, we've moved this screen from here to the table, and the entire family is around it. And that's what we want to make happen.
We've got a question from online, if we can patch it in.
Yeah.
Oh. They've got to wait for us to run a delay because it's live stream. They always have a brief delay before they know what happened here. Not a delay to worry about sanity.
I was going to say censoring Morgan. Or we heard stories.
Disappeared. Great.
Oh.
Question disappeared. All right, we'll get him back. Sorry to interrupt you. You still have it? You want to come up here and read it, James?
Thank you.
Cool.
By the way, she says, appreciate discussion around appearing the various demographics through AR. Which demographic has been the biggest challenge to appeal to and why?
I can take that one. So, the beginning of our validating and the continuous, validations that we do. It reminds me of going through Coolray Fields and just walking through and talking to audience members who are there. And without a doubt, every time there was a family, kids would get excited. Okay, let's talk. Oh, anything that resembled, mobile games. Their moms are, chiming in, but the father. That is the one he wouldn't even want to make eye contact with me. Oh, what is this kid talking about? I don't want to get pulled into conversation. I'm focused on the game. And then the only time that they would chime in would be like, well, what incentives, if you, in order to play this, if there's anything that could buy your attention for this, what would it be? And that's when he would chime in and say beer. So that's to the point of what we're doing though. We're going after, specific demographics. We're learning more about the ones who aren't engaged. And also, I brought up that point earlier about the casual fan. And, that again, that's, our key demographic. There are still going to be diehard fans out there. I love them to death too, but they're not going to be our first early adopters. These are the guys who, they love baseball. They love the way it is. They even love how slow it is. They love, they love the tradition of the sport. They know all the names. They want the stats. They want the highlights, and that's fine. We're all different. So that is the hardest demographic for us is the traditional, like typically older male.
So I have a question about tying this to customizable merchandise. So what we see right now are people go into interior design spaces with an AR app, and they use that AR app to change the space that they're physically in. I've seen this done with HoloLens, with phones, with a variety of tools. How easy would that be for you to team up with someone? Maybe not, I change the colors on the jersey, pick my numbers, etc., but more traditional stuff. Change the name on a plastic baseball bat, change the color of a baseball bat that they want to buy, and then actually pick it up on site.
Size of the object is kind of what's critical at this point, and distance from camera. So what you can see is, what you could imagine, do we have any signs over here that we can see? Not really. So when we think about a traditional baseball field, we have like the signs along the back, along the outfield, and then usually around the home base. Those could certainly be customized. That would not take a lot to make a reality. Also, advertisements embedded onto the field itself would not be as much of an issue as it once was. Thankfully, issues regarding AR drift, which is generally the likelihood of an AR object to drift in reality from the position you expect it to, have thankfully become less of a problem as time has gone on. So something like a baseball bat or a baseball, not so much at the moment, but certainly some of the larger objects on the field.
And speaking of the signage, one of the things I know would keep people in seats if they're competing in the AR to see themselves up in lights at the end of the game. Is that something you're already tied into, where leaderboards will appear late in game, keep them in there the whole time, encourage them to drive up their score to see their name, or even maybe get placement on an on-field level sign. It might even be on TV.
Yeah, so that's exactly where we want to go. Talking with Nanolumens and Daktronics is, we're talking about having that native advertising where not only are you on the big screen as a Home Depot, or not on the big screen, but you're now on the big screen as a Home Depot tool. But then also as people are capturing content, we can also have like a little profile picture up there. So even if it's their content, but then also they are also getting, that's my picture, that's my video that I made. But as you're driving up the gamification aspect, yeah, we have the leaderboard. And being able to see, how am I doing in this game? And then we can also have a season-long game board as well of how am I doing against, people who are coming regularly. And, I have to come a lot if I want to, beat, Joe over here because he seems to be coming to every game. So I better start coming to more.
Yeah, please come up to ask a question so that the whole universe can hear.
Yeah.
Great presentation so far.
So far. Oh,
It'll
no.
only get worse.
2 minutes to tank.
But I had a negative connotation to it. I meant I'm expecting more. So the user, the fan in the stands, what do we know about their tolerance of using AR, pulling up their phones or apps? Is there a point of maybe by the 7th inning they're just tired, or what keeps them engaged?
So to be honest, I don't know. And that's where we're very excited to be launching these first pilots. So that's, those are some questions about, making this, better. And that's one of our, those are some of the UX behind is having an AR menu or AR signage better, because, I have to open up an app. I have to now hover over in these certain directions where earlier I just have to look in that direction. All I have to do is hold something in my hand. I don't need to do all this extra work. So for us, it's, thinking about how, what is the natural instincts of the fan? Where are they naturally going? So as, what we've been seeing, and just by observation, saying, okay, a lot of fans will typically go to, especially ones with families, they like to go to the seats first. They want to have their home base. And then after a few innings, then they start, they'll take turns, depending on how many parents or guardians are there. Okay, you stay with them. We're going to go to the restroom. Then we'll come back. Then we're all going to go get food. Then we'll come back. You go. We'll take turns. So it's really just by observation and understanding, who is part of this group. But yes, so we do have a variety of games that we're, getting ready to implement throughout these seasons. And that's going to be a huge learning opportunity for us, because, how much is too much? Is, 9, if we have 1 per inning, is that perfect? Or is that too much? Right. Or how often do we want to engage fans after the venue? Is, if I get an alert every 2 days, that's perfect. I'm willing to go to Domino's and then also go to Brewster's, but I can't be doing this all the time. So, I'm going to start ignoring these notifications that you're annoying me with. So what I'm trying to get is, we have a lot of learning to do in front of us, but we're very excited to continue down this path, because what we've learned thus far is that they're excited for more.
And you're able to track all the activity as far as what was participated, what games participated in, what activities, when.
Yes, exactly. And that's a huge part of what we're doing in offering that ROI, is because right now they just have no information. Not only they have no idea who's in their seats during the Home Depot tool race. They have no idea who's watching this. So we're going to be able to say, what time do people get up and start playing, capturing choppers? Did they get 25% of them? Did they get 100% of them? Did they play again and again? As we're capturing content, we're actually, again, creating that native advertising. So then we also have, additional value as well. But just learning, who's playing, and then, being able to identify, okay, they're here, they're playing it, and being able to sell that back to give a little bit more insight to these brands.
And one final question. I, as the user, am I using your application to access this, or would I be able to use my favorite AR app? And how does that work?
Another great question. So I like to say that the teams are our partners and the brands are our customers. And so we are creating apps for these minor league baseball teams to start off with. Again, that's just another reason to why this is becoming such a great ecosystem for us, is it's very much untapped. To be quite frank, when we were partnering with the Gwinnett Stripers, or Gwinnett Braves at that time, was, this will be a great place to demo. We'll be able to test things, break things, mess up, and then we'll be able to move on to bigger opportunities where we'll have more confidence. But then learning about this ecosystem, it's just perfect. It's very much untapped. People are thinking the exact same way as us, so we don't have to build into anything existing. We get to own the real estate there, in essence. But we will, as we're going into other places, we will be connecting with other companies like Sidearm Sports and Yinscam. And so a lot of these more established teams, they already have existing apps. Some of them have multiple ones. So it's going to be working with, providing a SDK or an API.
Yeah, we are actively building the SDK and API as we go.
Okay, thank you.
Wait and see if you have any more questions online, please share them in chat, and we'll go ahead and share them here live. I'll go ahead and ask one more question. So I always think of the players' stories as the stories most fans are interested in, want to be involved with, and I would think you would have great buy-in from minor league players who just do anything to raise their profile and get more involved. You think you'll have that same sort of interest from major league players who are also trying to brand build?
So I do believe, I get what you're saying about, minor league players who are having, they have to do a lot more. And that's actually just the fun ecosystem of minor league baseball as a whole is a lot of people don't know who these players are, so that's why they have to go out of their way to make new fan engagements. And there's been a lot of crafty ways of these minor league teams of doing it. So it's just a lot of fun of being in that particular space. To be honest, so actually with the Major League Baseball, they're the ones who, or any major league sports in general, professional sports, excuse me, is actually where they're fighting for it even more because those are the names that have recognition. So if they want to step up, they have to be in the spotlight. They fight even harder for it. T.O., case in point. So we have actually seen the minor league baseball or Major League Baseball. They actually created their own Twitter. Basically, they recreated the Players Association recreated that solely so they could have more control over the advertising rights, and basically they wanted to have the brand power. So basically they're trying to boycott Twitter so they can have all the fans come to the Players Association feed, and I can't remember the exact name of it right now. But I feel like there's actually more opportunity in the professional sports, and I'd be curious to know more about what we can do in the minor league sports, minor league space.
Okay, back for another business type question. It's a conditional question. So the first part of it is, do you all have a deployment adoption strategy for the app? Part two of that, if so, what does that look like from a high level? And the third component of that is, what type of projections are you expecting for adoption and deployment of your application?
Great questions. So we're getting started in the minor league space, which in order for us to get started, they don't have apps. So we're able to say, hey, look, we are going to be able to engage with your fans with the most immersive technology to date. So we're giving them something entirely new that they couldn't in any other way afford that. By moving up the chain of tier 3 to 2 to 1, meaning national and regional advertising versus your local. If we take automotive, for example, we have we have Jim Ellis, who might be working with a handful of, high school sport and, high school venues. But then at the national tier 1 is, Ford, going, okay, this is going to be our advertising strategy for the entire country. And we're going to do these ad buys on TV. We're going to do these ad buys on programmatic and print. That's, where we'll start to be able to do more as we open that up. And so basically we can turn it on its head. We can say, hey, Chevy, we can get you into these local footprints that can typically be very time consuming and expensive for you. So go ahead and put Nashville, Chattanooga, Rome, Charleston, Savannah, Atlanta, and Birmingham. We got that. Basically, then we can turn around to the, these teams and, recreate that. So the adoption, I believe, from a business scale in that area, we can create our own distribution channels by naturally creating more customers. The other thing too is by working in the local level now is, we can seamlessly move up, hey, this is working really well. Who do we know at the next level, at Chick-fil-A? As we go into some of the other sports and other leagues, we will be starting work with other just naturally distribution channels. So having to work with other companies that have established these apps isn't necessarily a bad thing. So if it means we have a slightly less gross profit margin, but we get to work with some of the most, renowned names in sports in the country. I mean, they're already there. They already have some of the fans there. And then what we get to say is, hey, you're doing a great job of getting those diehard fans. Let us help get the casual fans who don't care about your stats and highlights. They don't care about, the parking. Like, we're going to have fun with this, and we're going to get those guys that you don't know anything about. So, yeah, we're very confident about, the different plays that we can go here.
Yeah, I think we're already running well past time. Any more questions from online we want to share? Anyone want to take the last question? You want to?
Oh, one more?
Yeah, sorry. You guys talked about where you had the baseball gloves over the different bases. How do you guys get access to that kind of real-time data? Is it come from the teams, or is it just observation?
That's a good question. So some of it is as simple as having an API to the scoreboard. So if someone is making the, clicking to say, oh, there's someone on first and second, that's all the information it takes. For the more fast-paced sports and, the more details we want to get with or get for that game, We connected with, there's these companies called Sports Radar, another one called Stats. Basically, they have people all over the place watching these games, and they'll pay people to be on site. One way or another, they're going to make sure that they have the stats for the major games, and so with that information, they have feeds that we can tap into. Anything you want to? So I'll just make the last comments. One, again, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming out. We've done a really good job about building a foundation. We have, been working on, again, our real-time database, building out an infrastructure to support AR as the backbone of our main technology. But as we go forward, really what's going to help us be successful as a business and really achieve our goal of making memorable AR experiences is by having fun, engaging, sticky games. And that's what we're looking for next in our hires, our experienced game developers. We're looking for those with experience in Unity. Any experience with 3D or AR is definitely a plus. But really, it's more on just, the gamification aspect. What really drives people, what helps, what keeps people coming back for more. And that's what we're mostly interested in. So we're very excited about networking through this community. Even if we're not hosting an event, we'll definitely be participating in more of these. So please spread the word. Yeah, we're definitely looking. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more time, thank you to Fanboard, Morgan and Josh for the presentation, the food, the wonderful space, and all of this. And thank all of you for coming out tonight. There are 2 more announcements, if you don't mind. And like I said, they are hiring, so if you want to talk to them about positions, I mentioned Tripwire and Control Freak as well. However, I know that Ron Jones, you came in late. Parker Kane came in right before the end. If you all want to come up here, I think you both have announcements to make really quickly. So like a minute each. Ron Jones runs our indie cluster for indie developers. Yeah, so if you want to find the Unity devs, he is always a hookup.
Right here, is this good? Can you guys see me? Hey, you guys. So for those that don't know me, my name is Ron Jones, coordinator of the Indie Cluster. Basically, just a quick announcement. I'm, going through all these events and everything like that. I want to make sure people see my pretty face because we are doing our first donor party, almost like a gala, if you will, on April 24th. Basically for our organization, the Indie Cluster, which is Atlanta's traveling indie game booth and online community. We partner with different organizations and everything like that, give back to the community, partner with schools and teachers to help teach kids, minority groups how to make games, that kind of thing. So yeah, would really love you guys' participation and sponsorship. Thanks.
All right, and Parker from VRX. Duetti.
Sure, it is a secret. No, more information on the website indiecluster.com, Facebook group. Yeah, there's a Facebook, and the whole Facebook event and everything like that. Where is going to be at Shared Space, the Cobb facility. That's actually down the street somewhere. So yeah, from 7 to 10. So yeah, it's gonna be a formal event, and we'd love to see you guys there. Thanks.
All right, and Parker with VRX, who hosted the IGDA Atlanta Connection Mixer Sunday.
Hey guys, I'm Parker, Vice President of Product Development with VRX. Just want to let everybody know in the community that we're starting our esports initiative. So what we want to do is have any local game developers that have games that are near or have already launched and want to have esports tournaments or some kind of launch party. We've set our venue up to be able to handle that. We can host a few hundred people, and we have the ability to do that. So if anybody wants to have a launch party for their game or have a tournament for any of their games, it doesn't have to be VR. It can be even tabletop, 2D, whatever you want. So just let everybody know that. So get in contact with us over at vrx.games. That's the website. Or you can email me at parkerkane@vrx.games. Thanks.
And apparently our last arrival, Dr. Unity himself, would like to say something. You have Dr. Unity classes coming up?
Yeah, I do that too. Okay, on my trip over here from Lawrenceville, I got a call from Southern Fried Gaming Expo. Ron, I got to talk to you after this, but essentially they're looking for indie developers to showcase their games on June 10th through the 13th at the Southern Fried Gaming Expo here at Marietta. The Hill. Well, I'll find out the location, but it's called the Southern Fried Gaming Expo. So you either get a hold of Ron Jones or myself, and we'll get you some information. But they're looking to expand the size. Currently, is one ballroom that we had last year. They're actually trying to do 2 ballrooms this year. So that's pretty good. As well as I plan on doing Dr. Unity classes again. For those who don't know, 10 years ago when I started working with Unity, I actually had classes at the US Gaming Arena. And I was showing people how to do Unity. Well, 10 years later, so go ahead and restart that back up. So I'm looking at, I got a place for it now. It's at the Galactic Quest comic book store in Buford, and we're just trying to set a date. So if you guys have any ideas of when you want to actually have these classes, let me know. We're currently looking for Friday nights. So that's about it. Thank you.
And of course, we have Dr. Unity trainings on the GGDA YouTube channel, Georgia Game Dev, youtube.com, Georgia Game Devs. One more time for Fanboard, Morgan, Josh, thank you all very much. Great hosting, great presentation. Thank you all for joining us. See you all May 8th at the Microsoft Store at Lenox, and see all of you online next weekend for our first news show, Game Dev News Network.